What you're about to see is a real-time walk through parts of Barcelona filmed by a woman who wanted to document what she experiences on an ordinary day. She moves through neighborhoods that years ago were known for being clean, lively, and filled with Spanish locals, families, and tourists enjoying the streets together. The atmosphere back then was relaxed, open, and safe. We'll dive into this story in today's video, but before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Right now, only 12% of viewers are subscribed, so join the community and help us grow. In contrast, the footage she captures today shows a very different reality. As she walks, the streets are dominated by groups of men who are clearly not Spanish locals, and their presence completely changes the feeling of the area. These men linger on corners, approach her repeatedly, and watch her in ways that make her visibly uncomfortable. This isn't about guessing origins or making assumptions. It's simply acknowledging what the footage shows. The men harassing her are not from Spain. The real issue here is behavior. Throughout the video, she is approached, spoken to, or followed in ways that feel intrusive and unsettling. She can't walk more than a few steps without an unwanted interaction. The sense of ease and safety that once defined these neighborhoods is gone, replaced with an atmosphere that feels tense and unpredictable, especially for a woman walking alone. The video highlights a shift that locals have been talking about for years. Certain parts of Barcelona no longer feel like they belong to the community in the way they once did. Instead of a balanced mix of residents, workers, and tourists, she encounters clusters of non-Spanish men occupying public spaces and creating an environment where harassment has become normalized. As you watch the clip, pay close attention to her reactions, the constant interruptions, and the way the atmosphere shifts from street to street. The problem is plain to see. Parts of the city feel less welcoming and far less safe than they used to. And that reality is being felt directly by the people who live there. Have a watch.
Te quiero, cariño. Te quiero mucho. 02.
Vamos, los dos gente. Aquí nada.
Que te apoyan esta noche.
Juste une question.
Oh, good. I'm good.
And that's exactly what the video shows. A woman simply walking through the city and being repeatedly approached, stared at, or harassed by groups of men who are clearly not local Spaniards. The problem isn't the city itself, it's the behavior on display. When one area becomes dominated by groups who treat public spaces like this, it changes the entire atmosphere and makes ordinary people feel unsafe. What you've just seen is a snapshot of how these neighborhoods now feel on the ground. Tense, uncomfortable, and nothing like the Barcelona many people remember. In other news, Chris Philp has accused Labour of being complicit in the cover-up of the grooming gang scandal after he claimed Sir Keir Starmer's government had been dragging its feet on the matter. The Shadow Home Secretary said it was about time the Labour government took action with his leader Kemi Badenoch, due to unveil her alternative rape gangs inquiry this morning. Mrs. Badenoch is set to unveil her alternative rape gangs inquiry with a new focus on groomers' religion and ethnicity in a bid to rival Labour's investigation. The Tories released the draft terms of reference for the national probe after accusing Labour of dragging its feet, with its inquiry having no named chairman and no terms of reference so far. Speaking recently, Mr. Philp said, It was now half a year ago that they were forced into announcing an inquiry into the rape gang scandal. They didn't want to do it, they were dragged kicking and screaming. And here we are half a year later, and they've done absolutely nothing at all. It makes them, in my view, complicit in the cover-up of these awful crimes, where young, mainly white girls were systematically raped by men of mainly Pakistani origin. That was covered up deliberately by those in authority, because they were more concerned about so-called community relations than they were about protecting girls. We need this inquiry to get to the truth. However, the Tory party has also been chastised for speaking out about the grooming gang scandal after it spent 14 years in power. Mr. Philp looked to brush off the accusations, saying, "I'm afraid that's nonsense. We're being constructive. We're not just criticizing from the sidelines, we have actually developed our own proper terms of reference." Sir Keir was forced into a U-turn on the grooming gang scandal back in June after consistently refusing to launch an inquiry into the scandal. Meanwhile, Mr. Philp criticised Labour's attempt to smear his party before the Prime Minister backtracked on the inquiry. When Kemi and I first called for this inquiry back in January, Keir Starmer smeared us both as jumping on a far-right bandwagon just for calling for the inquiry, Mr. Philp added. Then, a few months later, he was forced into a U-turn when faced with a vote in Parliament 2 days later. But here we are 6 months later, they've done nothing, and the victims and survivors that we're talking to feel very, very let down. Meanwhile, a Labour spokesman accused the Tories of failing to take action against the rape gangs in the party's 14 years in power. Their record on this issue is clear. They had years to take action on this appalling scandal, yet time and time again they failed to do so, he said. This Labour government accepted all the recommendations from Baroness Casey's report, and we are committed to a full statutory national inquiry to uncover the truth. It will be robust, rigorous, and laser-focused on grooming gangs, and its scope will not change. The inquiry will direct and oversee local investigations with the power to compel witnesses and summon evidence. And it will explicitly examine the background, ethnicity, and culture of offenders. A senior NHS leader has urged Londoners who feel unwell to wear a face mask when using the tube, buses, or trains, as the capital is hit by what he describes as a tidal wave of flu cases. Daniel Elkales, who heads NHS providers and previously led the London ambulance service, said the health service is in uncharted, unprecedented territory because of a particularly aggressive flu strain spreading rapidly across the city. "We really need people to sit up and pay attention," he told Times Radio, stressing that anyone coughing or sneezing should wear a mask in public to avoid passing the virus on. This year's flu is not a typical winter bug, but a very nasty variant that is far more infectious than recent strains. Health officials warned on Monday that London is experiencing its highest ever flu levels, with record case numbers and no sign of a peak yet. Hospital admissions have tripled, driven by a mutated influenza AAH3N2 strain known as subclade K, or superflu. Warm and wet weather is helping the virus spread more easily, and with schools still open before Christmas, children are catching it in classrooms and taking it home. Elkales emphasized that the surge is happening much earlier in the season than usual, and urged everyone eligible for a free flu vaccine to get it immediately. For those who don't qualify for a free jab, he said paying £15 to £20 at a pharmacy is probably the best investment they could make this winter. He also called on the public to return to the infection control habits used during the pandemic. If you're coughing and sneezing but still able to go to work, you should be wearing a mask in public spaces, he said. We were very good at this during COVID, and we need to return to that now. The NHS is facing additional pressure as well. Whittington Health NHS Trust in London has reinstated mask requirements in some areas, telling visitors they must wear a mask in the emergency department, certain wards, and other high-risk clinical areas. The trust has also asked people with flu symptoms not to visit the hospital at all. Ambulance services across London are dealing with hundreds more calls each week as infections continue to climb. Meanwhile, the NHS could face further strain as resident doctors, formerly known as junior doctors, are planning strike action just before Christmas. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander urged them to rethink, saying, "I do think that the British people want to see doctors at work." What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you have not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.